Hello, everyone, and welcome to the MIT 100K launch finale. My name is Akhilesh, and I'm one of the managing directors of MIT 100K this year, along with Jennifer and Christian. We are incredibly excited to have you join us from wherever in the world you are. In April, 130 teams applied to the 100K launch competition. Over the course of the last month, these 30 teams made it to semifinals. 30 of these teams made it to the semifinals, and all the 30 teams received financial support and expert mentorship. These 30 teams pitched their startups during the semifinals to be shortlisted as one of the 8 finalists for the 2020 MIT 100K launch finals. This evening, 8 entrepreneurs will present their pitches and answer questions from a panel of distinguished judges. They will compete for the grand prize of $100,000, and the runner-up will receive $50,000. Tonight, we also have the honor of speaking with Anne Wojcicki, the co-founder and CEO of 23andMe, for our keynote interview. Over to you, Jennifer.
Before we jump in, we want to take the time to thank those who made this event possible. To our judges and mentors, thank you. These people have volunteered their times reviewing applications and working with teams to ensure that the competition is fair and valuable for all teams involved. We thank you so much for your time and commitment. We also want to give a big thank you to all of our sponsors for the season. We are incredibly grateful for their support, even during these uncertain times. The funding they provided enables us to have this competition tonight and continue with the 31st anniversary of the MIT 100K virtually. In addition to their support, our sponsors serve as mentors and guides for not only our teams, but also our organizing committee members. So thank you again to our sponsors. From our platinum sponsor, Akamai, our gold sponsors, Goodwin, Morgan Lewis, and Wolf Greenfield, and our silver sponsors, Sidan and Latham & Watkins. Now over to Christian.
Finally, we want to thank everyone on the MIT 100K organizing committee. As we navigated the transition to a virtual format for this year's competition, the individual team members invested countless hours working to ensure that every step of the 100K was a success, and without them, none of this would be possible. To all of our competitors tonight, we wish you the best of luck. And to our audience, thanks for tuning in. Please sit back and enjoy the show. Now I'd like to introduce our MC for the evening, Scott Stern. Scott is the David Sarnoff Professor of Management in the Technological Innovation, Entrepreneurship, and Strategic Management Group at Sloan. He is the faculty director of the Martin Trust Center for MIT Entrepreneurship and also teaches entrepreneurial strategy in the E&I track at MIT. Scott has won numerous awards for his research on entrepreneurship and innovation and actively engages with startups throughout the MIT ecosystem and around the world through the MIT Regional Entrepreneurship Acceleration Program. Welcome, Scott.
Thank you, Christian. Thank you to all the organizers. My name's Scott Stern. I'll be your host this evening. Welcome all from around the world. This is one of my favorite evenings, and we wish that we could all be together, and we are all together for this global online event. This competition, the MIT 100K competition, started 30 years ago when a group of students approached my dear colleague, Ed Roberts, about the idea of living the MIT motto, mens a manus, through a new startup competition. Ed was game, quickly helped the students raise $10,000, and that was just enough to spur an explosion of student interest, engagement, and leadership that continues to this day and that we've seen all through this year. Through the generosity of some long-term sponsors, the 10K became the 50K and now the 100K. And it's been such an honor to witness the growth and success of this entirely student-run initiative. The 100K is now not simply a one-evening event, but a year-long journey. It begins with pitch competition in the fall, Accelerate over IAP, and the launch competition that culminates this evening with 8 teams vying for the Robert P. Goldberg grand prize of $100,000. We continue that legacy tonight with 8 teams bringing MIT insight and drive to bring their startup to this stage and ultimately launching that startup to the world. This is obviously a unique time as we confront the challenges of COVID-19. And obviously, this is the first time we're moving to the first ever online MIT 100K launch finale. Alongside the entire MIT community, I hope each of you is doing as well as possible in this unique and challenging time. And we know as faculty, as students, as part of that MIT community, how much all of you have faced challenges, surpassed challenges, and given back to the community during this time. We'll get through this crisis through the extraordinary commitment and initiative demonstrated by the MIT entrepreneurship community, from contributions including the provision of protections for our frontline workers to the developments of the therapies and treatments that will ultimately allow us to solve this crisis. Finally, it's been a long yet worthwhile journey for the startups involved. More than 100 applicants from each of MIT's 5 schools participated in the first stage of this process. That led to 40 teams moving into the semifinals to push their ideas forward over the past month. Last week, these semifinalists pitched online in front of live judges who selected the 8 who join us this evening. Before we get started, let's give a round of applause all around the world to all the teams that participated in the competition this year. We look forward to hearing more from you in the future and know Thank you, Jennifer. Tonight, each team will have 5 minutes to present their pitch, followed by 7 minutes of question and answer with our esteemed panel of 6 judges: Ron Chaney, Sarah Hodges, Jennifer Jordan, Jason Troutner, Adam Valkin, and Leandro Vetcher. The judges have already had a chance to dig in on the business plans for each startup, and we thank each of them for contributing their valuable time and expertise to move the MIT entrepreneurial ecosystem forward. I'll be introducing each of them more fully throughout the evening, but want to get going today. Without further ado, let's get to the pitches. Okay, where are we? Our first pitch comes from an MIT startup exploring how we can bring technology to agriculture to lower pesticide use. Joining us for the first presentation of the night is Vishnu, CEO of AgZen and a PhD student here at MIT. Take it away, Vishnu.
Pesticide pollution causes around 200,000 deaths every year, but farmers are forced to spray more than ever to keep up with rising food demands. The main reason they have to spray so much is because almost all of what they spray simply bounces or rolls off plants because of the natural water repellency of plant surfaces. In fact, we spray about 50 times the amount of pesticides that actually sticks to crops and contributes to protection. And this overspraying has a terrible cost. Pesticide pollution causes around 5 million acute illnesses every year, and it pollutes all parts of the environment, with up to 90% of agricultural water streams being contaminated. Finally, pesticides also represent a terrible economic burden for farmers. Farms spend around $60 billion a year globally on pesticides, as they can contribute to up to 30% of production costs for certain crops. Now let's look at a typical customer, a large farm with $5 million in sales. This farm would spray about 25 tons of pesticides at a cost of around $800,000 every single year. And a majority of this value is simply bouncing off plants, as shown here. Here at MIT, we've come up with a solution to this problem. We take the pesticides that farmers already spray and split it into 2 parts. We then mix these parts with oppositely charged, food-safe proprietary additives, and then spray these 2 parts simultaneously onto plants. When they reach a plant surface, these 2 parts combine and react, pinning the droplet to the plant surface, enhancing both adhesion and retention. Now, to show you a demonstration of this technology that was featured on the BBC, on the left, we have conventional spraying. As you can see, we spray a lot, but all we end up with are these islands of poorly adhered drops that can be easily displaced. In contrast, on the right, we have the AgZen spraying system, which results in much more uniform and retentive coatings. This allowed us to demonstrate a 10x reduction in sprayed volume for a target level of coverage in the lab. And it motivated our field trials, which over the last 2 years have completely de-risked our technology. We conducted field trials in Massachusetts, Venice, Florida, and California, spraying over 500 acres and 10 different types of crops. And we built spraying systems as small as the backpack sprayer shown in the picture to as large as the tow-behind sprayer shown in the video. And over all of our field trials, we were able to demonstrate a 50% reduction in pesticide usage on average. Now, what this means for our typical customer is a 13-ton reduction in pesticide sprays and $400,000 in savings every single year. For a typical customer, our upfront costs for sprayer retrofitting would be around $115,000. And we've chosen to price our additives at around $100,000 a year. This leads to significant savings for our customer starting at the very first year, which has been very well received by all the customers that we've talked to. We offer significantly more savings than any of our competitors, and we're also the only product that leads to zero additional toxicity to plants or the environment. With our business model, our total addressable market is $9 billion globally and $2.3 billion within the US. Our initial target market is large farms in the US that grow crops with a high proportion of pesticide costs. And this market alone is worth around $100 million. We've spoken to a lot of customers and they've given us some great feedback. We've done our field trials in some of the largest farms in the world, and they've agreed to be part of our paid pilot program that's launching this year. We've also been talking to regulatory agencies to establish the AgZen system as the standard for sustainable pesticide spraying. And we also want to note here that all of our food-safe proprietary additives are made of components that are pre-approved by the EPA. Finally, we're in advanced talks with potential manufacturing partners to help us scale up as we launch this year. We've worked on this technology for the last 6 years with support from various organizations within MIT, and we have patents pending in the US and several countries internationally. We're currently raising $100,000 to help expand our team and pay for the costs associated with our paid pilot program. At the end of the year, we'll raise another $2.5 million to help us grow towards $100 million in revenue by the year 2024, which would represent a 10% capture of all the large farms in the US. And we have the team that can make this happen. My name is Vishnu, and I'm the CEO, and Sridhar is our CTO. We're both in our final years of our PhD at MIT, and we'll be graduating with minors in business from Sloan. Our chairman, Professor Kripa Varanasi, is a serial entrepreneur, and he invented this technology along with Maher, who also has a PhD from MIT. Finally, our advising team has decades of experience in both entrepreneurship and agriculture. We are AgZen, and our mission is to eliminate pesticide pollution and help farmers save $30 billion a year in pesticide costs with a 1-year payback. Thank you very much.
Fantastic. Great. Thank you so much, Vishnu. What a really fascinating stuff there from Team AgZen. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to turn to a 7-minute Q&A with our judges, where the judges can ask questions to really dig into these startup ideas. We're going to be starting with Sarah Hodges, who actually comes from a background in ag tech. Sarah, can you start us off?
Sure. So first off, congrats on making it to the finals. I'm curious, farmers are often hesitant to try new solutions on their crops. And so are your additives compatible with all of the existing major pesticides they're using today?
Thank you for your question, Sarah. Yes, they are. So our additives are actually completely food safe, and they're made from components that are already approved by the EPA. So it's completely compatible, and we've seen this during our field trials over the last 2 years and during our initial lab studies as well.
Thank you.
Great. I believe our next question comes from Leandra.
Congratulations, guys. Great presentation. Quick question. Have you considered measuring the health impact directly to the farms that you are working with in the pilots? That would be a nice value added to your pitch. And I think it would expand the potential partnerships that you might get, for example, with chemical companies. So can you expand on that, if you consider that, and if there's a way that you can measure those things specifically for the farm?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Leandro. Yes, indeed, we believe that there will be a direct correlation because we're enabling farmers to use about 50% less pesticides. That means not only will the farmers be exposed to less pesticides, but there'll be less pesticides in the environment, and these unnecessary deaths of 200,000 people could definitely be reduced. However, currently we're focusing on the value we can provide to farmers directly because we feel that we can easily understand the value that we bring to farmers there. But we are hoping to track that during our track health benefits during our pilot program and beyond. It's just that currently we want to stay focused on the amount that we can save farmers and sort of help that drive our business initially.
Okay, so an ROI. Jennifer Jordan next.
Yes, could you talk a little bit about the capacity you have to drive down that initial installation cost, the retrofit cost over time, either through OEM partnership or as you learn more about those retrofits?
Yes, thank you for your question. Yes, we believe that we can, especially given our potential partnerships with large agriculture manufacturing partners. Currently, the way that we are looking at it is the numbers that we presented for our CapEx represent the most conservative case. So it accounts for the fact that each sprayer would cover about 1,000 acres. Well, from talking to some of our field trial partners and also some of our advisors, we know that some farms actually use just one sprayer for 10,000 acres. So we can significantly drive down the CapEx cost as well, depending on how much more efficient a particular farm uses a sprayer. So that is something that we'll be looking into. And currently we're also constantly working on new sprayers to make our efficiency even greater. So one of the things we'll be focusing on there is how we drive down costs during scaling.
Yeah, very, very cool. And Jennifer, did you have a follow-up on that, or can I go to the next one? Great. I believe the next question is from Jason Troutner. Thank you.
Great. So my question is a little bit of a follow-up to Jennifer's question. So on the topic of those retrofits, have you analyzed if that payback period, that 1-year payback period, is different for smaller farms than it is for the larger farms? And then in particular, is there a threshold below which a small farm is so small that the cost savings might not be worth those retrofit costs?
Yeah, thank you for your question. Actually, the retrofit costs that we mentioned are specifically targeted towards these large farms. As we showed you in the videos, we can make these spraying systems as small as backpack sprayers to as large as tow-behind sprayers. So for smaller farms, we'll probably, as we expand, we'll probably offer more scaled-down versions. So the CapEx will come down and their payback periods will still remain at 1 year. But currently, we're focusing on the largest farms because that's where we can have the most benefit. And those are the CapEx costs associated with them. But yes, the CapEx will scale as we come down in farm size to keep the payback period the same so that farmers can achieve that significant amount of savings in the very first year.
Okay, very, very good. I think, Leandro, if I'm not mistaken, that's a follow-up question. And I'm not sure, Sarah Hodges, I just want to make sure I didn't cut you off earlier with any follow-ups if you wanted to go. So maybe we start with Leandro and Sarah if you had a further question.
I'm all set, thanks.
Well, it's a good question. I know some companies in this same sector are forced to finance the purchase of their product. So have you considered that? Have you included that in your plans for future rounds? Financing, having the ability to finance that or to match the farmers with potential source of financing for the retrofit?
Thank you for your question. So the business case that we provided represents many, like almost 3 years of discussion with our advisors and with the farms that we've worked with during our field trials. This includes farms as large as 80,000 acres like the King Ranch. So it's sort of built on on things that farmers have directly told us and large farms have directly told us. So that's how we came up with these numbers currently. As we go forward and we establish these relationships with our manufacturing partners and so on, we'll be looking at more complex methods of financing as well. But currently we have the words of the customer themselves saying that, hey, we're willing to pay this much. We want to use your technology as soon as possible. So that's kind of how we built our business model, is basically talking to our customers.
Very, very good. Some good PMR. I believe our probably last questions come from Ron Chaney. Thank you very much.
My grandfather was a farmer and he would have loved this. Congratulations for making the finals. So can you talk a little bit about how persistent the pesticide is on the leaf with your application? I'm asking because you may need to allay some fears that the pesticide will stay longer with conventional pesticides. So is there any concern that it will stick with the plant and stick with the crops and cause some unintended consequences down the road?
Yeah, so the short answer is that the pesticides in our case wash off just as easily as with conventional spraying. So let me expand on that a little bit. Currently, the way pesticides are sprayed is that they're dissolved in water and then sprayed onto plants. And as we showed you in the videos, most of these pesticide-containing water droplets simply bounce off. Our technology helps these pesticide-containing droplets stick better to the leaf, but it doesn't change anything about the interactions between the pesticides and the leaf once the water is evaporated. So they wash off just as easily as with conventional spraying.
Okay, great. I believe we're just about done for Q&A. Adam, I saw you had something in the chat. Do you want to?
Quick question. Yeah. So my quick question is this, Vishnu, is this the end game? Or is there, so could this be an incremental solution where in 5 or 10 years time, there's a solution that disrupts you? And if yes, what would that be?
So this status quo has been around for a very, very long time. So we spent about 4 years of time in research and development to come up with this, and then 2 years of field trials to come up with this. So we think that we have a very strong case going forward for the next few years. We're constantly working on new ways to enhance our products even more. So if we do come up with a new technology, we'll be phasing that in as well.
Okay. Once again, thank you. Congratulations to Team AgZen. Thank you so much for all the great work. Vishnu, what a great job. We are now at the end of our first 7-minute Q&A, and you can really already see how intense this back and forth can get. Thanks to the judges and everybody. Let's give a big round of applause. I think we might, I'm not sure if we're doing the rounds of applause. Okay. I now want our judges to take their 2 minutes to enter their scores and comments on AgZen, and that's going to be used by them in consultation at the end of this competition to help determine the final winner. While the judges begin their deliberations, I'll just start by introducing our first judge, Ron Chaney. Dr. Ron Chaney has been a technical leader at Hikmah Technologies for 20 years. As many of you know, Hikmah, with $2.9 billion in annual sales, was actually a runner-up in the 1999 MIT 50K competition, which shows that getting to this stage shows that very high potential. It's very often not the winner of the MIT 100K that goes the long way, but others in the competition as well. In his spare time, Ron works with Hikmah Corporate Development to identify startups for potential investment. He's been involved in the integration of those acquisitions over years. He's been a mentor, advisor, and investor for startups like CleverSafe, which was acquired by IBM in 2015 for $1.3 billion. Ron's been a longtime friend of the 50K and then 100K competition, as a volunteer, as an advocate within Hikmah and the broader entrepreneurial ecosystem. Welcome, Ron, and thank you so much for your contributions. Okay, if the judges are I think the judges look like they're done with their first round of comments. We are going to go immediately to our second team, GC Therapeutics, a team dedicated to unlocking the potential of cell therapy for incurable degenerative disease. I'm going to hand it over to Paristu, the CEO and co-founder of GC Therapeutics.
Hi, I'm Paristu, the CEO of GC Therapeutics, and along with Alex, George, and our team of 7, we have a combined 18 years developing our technology. Professor Church, co-inventor of CRISPR and a father of genomics, is our co-founder and senior advisor, so is Dr. Ehlers, former CSO of Biogen. Dr. Kaplan is our neurologist mentor. The market for cell therapies is expected to reach $55 billion in 2025, and just last year, 2 were acquired for $1 billion each. Cell therapies may be the only treatment for incurable diseases. Christopher, shown here, was paralyzed after a car accident, and cell therapies injected into his spine let him move again. This is Christopher.
Thank you for allowing me to live my life again.
Unfortunately, this clinical trial was halted in part because manufacturing the cell therapy was so lengthy and not reproducible and affects even the most established pharma companies like Novartis. They also have high cost and poor safety and low efficacy. Here's one that takes 180 days for 12% yield. At GC Therapeutics, we have developed a cell engineering platform that is a breakthrough for cell manufacturing. We can make any cell type in 4 days with up to 100% efficiency, which is 10 times more yield, 100 times more rapid, and is generalizable to any cell type. We achieve this by building the TFOM, which lets us tune the genetic master knobs to control stem cell fate. We have the world's first and only complete collection of 1,600 human transcription factors. We can see the unprecedented speed here as stem cells becoming blood vessel cells overnight. We have discovered and filed patents for over 200 recipes and validated 12 cell types. As you can see, we have a platform technology with unlimited potential. Our fast and efficient platform enables us to go beyond the cell's natural abilities by adding new functionalities to introduce the concept of supercells. We are adopting a hybrid business model to exploit our platform's rich pipeline. We will push lead products into the clinic internally and partner others for immediate revenue generation. We are in discussions with over 9 pharma companies for potential partnerships. We are focused on super OPCs as our lead program and are partnering long cells for COVID-19. For our first therapeutic program using super OPCs, we targeted the central nervous system, and after interviewing 10 neurologists and patients, we decided to go after myelin diseases. Among these, multiple sclerosis is the biggest market worth $99 billion. MS has 2 components, myelin degenerative and autoimmune, where the immune system attacks the myelin sheath. The standard of care is only addressing the autoimmune aspect, and cell therapies in development for regeneration suffer from manufacturing challenges. Our super OPCs address both by combining them to produce immunosuppressants locally and also regenerate the damaged nerve installation. But can we make these super OPCs? Yes, we can, rapidly and efficiently with over 95% efficiency in only 4 days, and they are similar to native cells. In a disease animal model, these cells reduce inflammation, degeneration, and disability, which shows the viability of the product. There's competition out there, but how are we better? We are multiple times better using a single step to make a high-quality product validated in animals. Just looking at the clinical grade manufacturing cost, we are reducing it by 10 times. On top of that, our best-in-class super OPCs can both regenerate myelin and fight autoimmune attacks, an advantage that is unique to our company. We have filed multiple patents through Harvard, and proprietary know-how was developed over 18 scientist years, and we are finalizing an exclusive license with Harvard. GCTX was on CBS 60 Minutes and Nature Biotech and won Amgen and Biogen's Golden Ticket Prizes and the Harvard President's Innovation Challenge. We are designing our manufacturing plans and regulatory and reimbursement strategy to be ahead of the game. As COVID-19 leaves permanent lung damage, during the pandemic, we pivoted to make long cells to regenerate tissue in these patients and make accurate drug discovery models. We have successfully manufactured long cells, which has been recently featured in the news, but the pandemic delayed our fundraising plans, and the 100K prize will be a bridge fund to maintain our operations. With this prize, we can hit critical milestones, establish our lab space, assess manufacturing feasibility, develop animal potency assays, and continue making long cells for COVID patients. For the COVID project, we are in discussions with a few companies for potential partnerships. Using seed funding, we will hit major milestones, including building our partnerships for external programs and the FDA Interact meeting for the wholly owned programs. We expect to receive FDA approval for super OPCs in 2030 and be profitable and cash flow positive by 2031 and have $300 million in revenue that year. This model does not include partnership revenues. As with any biotech, there's a long road to profitability, but we are doing this to help patients like Christopher. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. What a fascinating from GC Therapeutics and great presentation there from Power Stu. Now let's jump into the Q&A. I think on this one, we're going to be starting with Leandro Vetcher for the first question, and you guys can raise your hands as you'd like.
Thank you. Parasu, congratulations for making it to the final round here. A quick question about the company's IP strategy. You mentioned a series of patent pending recipes. How can you discuss how enforceable this type of patents and whether you consider going after trade secrets since this is not composition of matter patents?
Yeah, I can talk about that. Thanks a lot for the question. So regarding the patents, we have both compositions of matter for the engineered cells. As these are engineered cells, we're allowed, and they're not naturally occurring cells, we're able to patent the compositions of matter, which is the most strongest enforceable types of patents. Of course, we also have methods of engineering the cells, which are included in our patents as well. So we have 6 patents filed through Harvard, and we're working with WSGR to license and get an exclusive license for these patents.
Great, great, great. Okay, I think Leandro, did you want to do a follow-up there, or can I move on to Jennifer Jordan? Jennifer, take it away.
Great. I just have a quick question, which is, I know that there are successful hybrid models in this space, but I was wondering if you would talk to why the hybrid, and then why the choice of MS first? Are there other already approved cell therapies that you can accelerate so you can demonstrate that this is a viable case? Or are you going to have to like forge the path on MS?
And that's a really good question. So I'm going to answer the first part first in terms of MS. We actually did a risk analysis of different applications, and we decided to go after the neurology field because of all of the unmet needs in the field, and also because actually cell therapies, because of all of the different degenerative diseases, is going to be one of the our platform can have the highest value, and a lot of cell recipes for the central nervous system are very hard to make, so they're very difficult. So our platform actually you can leverage the platform and be able to make those recipes, and it puts us in a very unique position. So in terms of why we decided to go after multiple sclerosis, again, did another round of risk analysis. We decided to go after oligodendrocytes because they are the lowest hanging fruit in the central nervous system for multiple reasons. Again, not going to get into details about it, but just to say that the readouts, the clinical trial, and the design for them is very clear. And also among all of different applications, again, did another round of analysis to see what are the risks associated with the different indications, and we decided to go after transverse myelitis, which is one of the subsets of multiple sclerosis. So this subset actually has very unique features to it, including it's localized in the spinal cord, so it de-risks our indication a lot. So that is the main reason that we decided to go after this. It also it's a fast track, so it actually has a quicker path for FDA approval.
Great.
Yeah, and in terms of your,
good. I want to leave some room for other people to ask questions.
Okay, okay, and Jennifer, okay, let me turn to Sarah Hodges. Thank you.
Sure, congratulations. So I'm curious, what degree of custom tailoring is needed to serve each new patient?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess this is referring to, an autologous case where each patient can get their own cells, for example, and you can customize the cells as needed. And that's really the end goal for us. But after talking to a lot of manufacturers and experts and KOLs in the cell therapy space, we realized that custom tailoring is very difficult right now because the field is new. So what we're doing now to actually get quickly into patients to get first in human data is to actually use an allogeneic case where we can use one master cell line and be able to rapidly show safety and toxicology experiments and data to be able to use that in a group of patients much more rapidly. Of course, with our critical enabling technology for the custom tailoring, we see in the longer term being able to customize it for each individual patient.
Great. And our next question, Sarah, did you want to ask a follow-up, or should I move over to Adam Belkin? Okay, over to Adam Belkin.
Can you talk just briefly about your partnership strategy and when you decide to partner and when you do it alone, and what the real value prop is to the partners you work with?
Absolutely. I mean, we are very focused in the neurology field. We don't want to defocus ourselves with other cell types at the moment, even though the platform has a lot of capabilities to go after different applications. For our partnerships, we already have more than 200 patent pending recipes and 12 cell recipes that have been completely validated. Our preference is to start with these cell types that we already have validated and are past the discovery stage to accelerate the partnership process and also capture the highest value.
Great. I think there's time for about one more question if we wanted one more. I know there were a few people from our judges who might not have been able to answer their full question. Jennifer, did you have a follow-up? I'm not sure if you did.
I can ask a quick follow-up, which would be, why not stage this process and really go aggressively after partnerships right now? Because speed is one of your biggest advantages, and the more things you can run through that pipe, the more you're going to learn, versus go after your own therapy right from the get-go.
Yeah, there's really a lot of advantages for that. I think one of the major issues is what we can learn by pushing this therapeutic into GMP is we can immediately learn what type of technologies are translatable, a tech transfer is possible, and to really solve those issues early. And so we really believe that doing both of these at the same time really enable us to really take advantage of both. And to the previous question about forging a path, and is this going to be really risky in that sense, we're really focusing on OPCs because we're able to leverage the existing clinical data where people have used OPCs in clinical trials before. So we're really leveraging the literally 3,000 rodents and pig sets of animal data from those type of cells, so we can really learn from them and to leverage that. So we're not using these cells for MS for the first time in that sense.
Great, very, very good. Leandra, did you have one last real quickie, or did you want to, or are we good for now?
Yeah, I think we run out of time.
Okay, very, very good. Okay. First, I want to thank GC Therapeutics, the entire team. Really, really great stuff. And now what we're going to do is we're going to give our judges once again 2 minutes to put down their reflections, their scores that they'll use for the final judging. And while they are undertaking that, this gives me a chance to introduce our second judge, Sarah Hodges. And Sarah is a partner at Pillar, an early stage venture capital fund here in Boston. She spent the last decade as an entrepreneur and operator in both high growth consumer as well as enterprise companies. She was a member of the executive team at Pluralsight, the world's largest online learning community for IT development and creative training. Before that, she was a member of the executive team at Smarterer, where she oversaw operations, client services, and marketing, and also co-founded Intelligently, a leadership development company transforming more than 4,000 emerging leaders across hundreds of high-growth companies. Thank you for all that great work, Sarah. She's a board member at Build, an advisor at Flybridge, and currently serves on the board of the New England Venture Capital Association. Thank you so much, Sarah. Really, it's great to see you contribute, as you always do, to the MIT entrepreneurial ecosystem and this competition in particular. Okay, we are going to move right along. We are keeping this moving at a good pace with our third startup, Harmony DeSalle, a team tackling the challenge of providing the world with clean water through their unique technology, improving desalination. Grace Connors, co-founder of Harmony DeSalle, grad student at MIT, will be presenting tonight. Let's hear from Grace.
Hi, my name is Grace Connors, and I'm introducing Harmony DeSalle. Harmony DeSalle is enabling more water production for less energy. Water sustains human life. As traditional water supplies continue to be depleted, seawater desalination is becoming increasingly important to provide fresh water for the Earth's growing population. In the next 4 years, $30 billion will be invested in building new seawater desalination plants. Overwhelmingly, the most popular technology is reverse osmosis, or RO. Reverse osmosis is a membrane-based technology that requires high pressure for operation. Because of that high pressure, there's a high energy consumption and large carbon footprint associated with the technology. Take Carlsbad, a state-of-the-art plant located in Southern California. It produces 200,000 cubic meters of fresh water per day, but at an electricity cost of 750 megawatt hours and emitting 250 tons of CO2. And while 200,000 cubic meters might sound like a lot of water, it's actually only 10% of San Diego's fresh water supply. That's where Harmony Desal comes in. Harmony Desal is providing the most efficient RO process, increasing current efficiency by 10%. And while 10% might not seem like a big number, if we look at the process efficiency history of RO, we'll see why this is so significant. When RO was introduced 50 years ago, it had a process efficiency below 10%. The major technological breakthroughs of the energy recovery device and improved manufacturing practices brought that up to around 50%. But in the last 10 years, we've hit a wall. We haven't been able to improve this process efficiency much at all until Harmony Desal. Harmony Desal is the next big step towards that maximum practical limit of RO process efficiency. In order to understand how Harmony Desal is able to achieve this, it requires us to understand a little bit about how conventional RO works now. Conventional RO operates at a continuous high pressure. In contrast, our batch RO system dynamically tracks the osmotic pressure of the system and recaptures all the previously wasted energy shown in gray without impacting production performance. The savings from this are immense. If we go back to our Carlsbad example, Harmony Desal could save them $4 million in operating costs, 30 gigawatt hours of electricity, and 9,000 tons of CO2 each year. And Carlsbad is just one of many plants where batch RO would have the same impact. We've proven batch RO at the bench scale, and we have a clear scale-up strategy. Our next step is to perform pilot scale validation on real water in New Mexico next summer. Then we will move to commercialization with small-scale installations in the Caribbean. The Caribbean is the ideal beachhead market for us. There's already a demand for desalinated water. The energy costs are some of the highest in the world, and the plant size is relatively small. Our desalination solution will fit within a shipping container. This makes it the ideal place for us to scale up batch RO. We plan to provide water as a service in the Caribbean. We will own and operate plants and sell water directly to our customers. That gives us recurring revenue, and our customers can avoid the hassle of operating a desalination plant. More importantly, this gives us the opportunity to refine our equipment design, to collect long-term plant data, and to grow our team. We'll require a $4 million initial investment to begin designing and building these plants. Once we've proven the technology through successful installations, we will move towards our ultimate goal of selling capital equipment to large-scale plants like Carlsbad. The economics are very compelling. Initially, the plant will incur a $10 million higher investment for batch RO as compared to conventional RO. Of that, Harmony Desal will profit $4 million. However, because of the energy savings associated with batch RO, this initial higher investment will be paid back in just 3 years. And over the plant's lifetime, it will save $65 million in operating costs. If Harmony Desal is able to capture just 5% of the new seawater desalination plants being built, we will profit $10 million each year. In 4 months, we've been able to develop relationships with key industry leaders, including Singapore's Public Utility Board, Suez, and Torre. We've also secured $20,000 of our $250,000 goal for performing 100 customer interviews and pilot scale testing next summer. Our team has a long history of working on desal technologies. Quantum developed batch RO for his PhD. Sahil designed other desalination solutions, which are now being commercialized in India. I've previously scaled and commercialized desalination equipment for a startup. We're also being advised by world-leading industry experts. Harmony Desal is enabling water production to sustain human life. We're providing more water with less energy. We'd be happy to answer your questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you. And what a great, inspiring solution there from Harmony Desal. Thank you so very much, Grace. So we're gonna once again turn to our Q&A. Great job. Let's turn to Jennifer Jordan this time for the first question.
Sure, Grace, great job. 2 quick questions. One is, could you help me understand, given how strong the economics are and the savings to the large plant, why is the right path for you to go and run end-to-end a desalination business in the Caribbean? Why not work more closely with those partners to scale up and de-risk that way?
So I can answer this question. So I want to stress that the purpose of those Caribbean installations is really just to collect data and prove the technology further. We've heard, speaking to members from the industry, that in order to get our technology in those large-scale plants, we need long-term operating data that proves that the technology does in fact save energy and that, more importantly, it's reliable. So really the purpose of this Caribbean installations is just a way to collect that data over a long term. Now we're selling the water there because it provides a recurring revenue so we can build the team and develop the technology further, and at the same time provide some value to the customers.
Great. Okay. Very, very good. Can I, Grace, did you want to also chime in on that or to the next question? Okay. How about we hear from Jason Troutner with his hand up?
Great. Very exciting technology, guys, and congrats on making it this far. My question is around your funding plans. So a lot of times, a lot of VCs have gotten a little greedy with the software companies and want to see those quick returns and hockey stick graphs. And then you've got obviously some more patient VCs in biotech and similar industries, but often they want to see like a monopoly product in the end. So I was wondering how the VCs or other potential sources of funding who you've talked to have reacted to that plan, and what the level of willingness is for certain funding sources to fund that long proof of concept period before you're selling a scalable product.
Thanks, Jason. Well, we haven't talked to quite that many VCs quite yet, but the investors that we have spoken to, they are a fan of the equipment sales to large scale plants because the market size is so large. Yeah.
To add to that as well, we have been approached by equipment manufacturers or membrane manufacturers like Toray that we mentioned, who are interested, and are excited about this 10% savings because they do see the value to the industry.
Great.
Thank you.
Okay, over to Adam. Oh, you need to unmute yourself.
When you talk to potential customers, Grace, about your solution, you are asking them to make a pretty big investment, post the Caribbean phase. And how does your solution stack up against the other companies that are looking to improve efficiency and provide better solutions? Because I know that this is a highly ventured space.
Sure. So I actually so a lot of the companies in the desalination space are really targeting brackish water. So they're doing inland brackish water desalination, and there the need is really for lower or it's for higher recoveries. So they're not as focused on energy savings. In the Caribbean in particular, seawater desalination is actually pretty common. So there are these containerized solutions, but what we're offering is just that same containerized solution at a 10% energy reduction. And because the energy costs are so high in the Caribbean, that's very attractive to any potential customer, like a resort who's relying on making their own water basically for their customers.
Very, very good. On to Adam, do you want to follow up, or on to Leandra? On to Leandra Venture. Thank you.
Yeah, so is this a technology that you can retrofit a current plant, or it has to be adopted when you build a new plant? And related to that, this is a regulated industry. What are the risks for a water plant for adopting new technologies, or your technology in particular?
Yeah, so we could absolutely do a retrofit on existing plants. Talking to customers, we've heard that that's relatively uncommon because due to the downtime, plants really do want to avoid shutting down. So we are relying on new installations, assuming that we're going to be relying on new installations for our growth. In response to your second question, I think it had to do with risk. Yeah, the water industry is a really risk-averse industry. That's part of the reason why we want to do water as a service out in the Caribbean, because if we were to license our technology out to someone else and there were to be a failure with batch RO, that would kind of absolutely kill the technology. So we really want to be deliberate about how we roll out the technology and build credibility in the technology before moving on to large scale.
Great. We have about a minute and a half left. I see Ron Chaney and Jason Troutner. Oh, did somebody else from the team want to
No,
add?
I was just going to add another point to that is the beauty about batch RO is that it uses pretty much exactly the components in conventional RO, except for the software and the bladder. So we don't have to go through the whole process of going through the regulations of getting that equipment cleared.
Okay, very, very good. Okay, on to, let me make sure I get it right. Up to Ron Chaney first.
Yeah, so I was going to ask about the retrofitting, but could you just carry on about that and tell us about how you see the space evolving? What's the opportunity for retrofitting versus the new plants that are coming online? And what sort of trade-offs are there for going after one versus the other?
Yeah, so,
sure. Oh, go for it, Sahil.
Yeah, I can answer this question. So right now, there's about 30 billion cubic meters per day of installed capacity. That capacity is growing at about 17% every year. So there's enough business in new installations that we could be targeting to have a successful business. As Kwanta mentioned, plants are typically designed for about 30 years of operation. And in those 30 years, it's pretty uncommon for them to retrofit equipment, which is why we're not really focusing on the capacity that's already online.
Okay, very, very good. Thank you, Team Harmony DeSalle. I learned more about desalination in the last 12 minutes than I probably ever knew before in my life. Not something I've great area with unbelievably good potential. I wish we could keep going. I'm now going to ask our judges once again their time to have a moment of reflection to record their scores and comments while we meet another member of our star-studded MIT Entrepreneurship Ecosystem judging team, Jennifer Jordan. Jennifer has helped entrepreneurs, corporations, and investors create value. She has cold called asset managers, launched the first internet coverage to grow a boutique Pacific Northwest investment bank to a mid-sized one to subsequent acquisition, managed investor relations to increase shareholder value at a publicly traded Santa Clara software company. I guess we can all take some guesses there what that might have been, and made direct venture capital investments in early stage high-tech companies. More recently, she's been a VC at Mass Ventures, and she's dug deep into Massachusetts' entrepreneurial ecosystem, from Boston to Cambridge to Springfield and Lowell. So the full range of Massachusetts, finding differentiated hardware and software solutions, leveraging large data sets to bring novel insights to new and old markets. She led the firm's investments in Ginkgo Bioworks, ClearGov, Spiro AI, Machine Metrics, and Curaverse, all great companies, and served on the board of a number of these companies. Additionally, she currently serves on the board of the MIT Enterprise Forum Cambridge, an amazing community which helps women re-enter, pivot, or remain in the workforce. Great to have you here tonight, and thank you for all you do across all these activities. Thank you so much, Jennifer. And now we're going to turn to our fourth team, Hikmah Health, a team dedicated to improving health outcomes, back to health, for displaced and underserved populations. They were also the winners of the MIT 100K Accelerate competition back in February. Over to you, Sinan from Hikmah Health.
Hi, I'm Sinan Ibrahim, an MD PhD student in the MIT Harvard HST program. I founded Hikmah Health with my brother Hassan and our good friend Zara. Every 2 seconds, another human being is forcibly displaced. Since I started talking, that's another 10 people. Today, there are 70 million displaced persons, one of whom is my own grandmother, who had to leave Syria during the war. The UN projects this number will balloon to over 1 billion displaced persons by 2050. Healthcare delivery for refugees, internally displaced persons, and other vulnerable people is often fragmented, uncoordinated, and under-resourced. Commercial EHR systems like the ones we use over at MGH simply require too much time on the part of physician users, who have an average of 5 minutes with each patient, as compared to 15 at MGH. Those EHRs are built around the billing needs of large, complex healthcare institutions. They are not easy to use or understand. They are way too expensive, and they are not prepared for the connectivity challenges of remote, low-resource settings. Enter Hikmah Health. Rather than building for billing, we created a product that makes patient data easily recordable and clinically actionable. Hikmah is the first affordable, lightweight, mobile, cloud-based EHR that provides dynamic insights to physicians in refugee camps. We are a 501c3 nonprofit that partners directly with clinics, delivering care on the ground to maximize impact at 3 levels. Firstly, for the individual physician, we connect them to their displaced patients wherever they are and empower them with the optimal data. Secondly, for institutions, we enable the clinics to anticipate their own operational needs. And finally, at a systems level, we plan to integrate the population health data across clinics to improve pandemic preparedness. Our product is a fully functional EHR with online-offline functionality, allowing physicians to work in areas of low connectivity, multiple language support, and short customizable workflows that save physicians time while standardizing the data, which is useful for rapid COVID screening. And all of our data is encrypted, fully in keeping with HIPAA requirements. So why Hikmah? And why now? We founded Hikmah Health in 2018 to serve the 13 million refugees of the Syrian crisis, but we find ourselves today in a world with an urgent and growing need for a health data solution. The COVID pandemic is highlighting the acute global need for reliable, real-time health data management for refugees superimposed on the massive burdens of chronic diseases like diabetes and hypertension, which require longitudinal data collection to manage. The costs of hardware and analytical software have dropped by an order of magnitude in the past decade, but commercial EHR software remains out of budget for low-resource clinics. Our team has roots as refugees and immigrants, and we will continue our relentless effort to address this challenge. This is a global problem, and it is expensive. We estimate that tracking health data over time yields cost savings of $10 per patient annually, saving up to $700 million in healthcare costs for clinics globally. We have deployed our platform with a mobile van clinic in Lebanon serving 5,000 Syrian refugees. We are now building partnerships across geographies and populations, including Venezuelan refugees in Colombia, migrant workers in India, and rural and homeless populations in the US served by van clinics. By 2022, we will be serving 1 million underserved patients and operating entirely self-sustainably from revenues. We are committed to releasing all of our software free and open source. As most low-resource clinics lack the technical expertise to self-deploy, we generate revenues by offering deployment support and feature customization. These clinics are willing to spend 5% of their annual budget on software. We value our contracts to scale with the clinic's patient population at $1 per patient per month. We will build our largest revenue stream in 2022 by launching large-scale data partnerships with international organizations like the WHO and Gates Foundation, paying to use our platform to drive epidemiologic insights. As a tech nonprofit, we know how to stretch every dollar. $100,000 will pay 1 year of salaries for 3 experienced developers working out of Beirut, Lebanon. These developers are from refugee communities themselves and deeply understand the challenge. We are a diverse team of 20 with 10 of us highlighted here. We are physicians and epidemiologists, developers and designers, data scientists and business professionals united by our drive to improve healthcare through data. Our board has leading physician scientists at Harvard Med with 120 years of deep expertise in clinical care for refugee patients. So thank you for joining us to realize our vision of a world in which every single doctor, no matter where they are, can take care of their patients with the power of data.
Very good. Thank you, Hikmah Health. Thank you very much. Very inspiring and very important problems, and obviously even more important in the context of this crisis. Let's begin our Q&A with the first question, if it's okay, from Leandro Vecher, and then we'll hear from Sarah Hodges right after that, if that's okay.
Thank you. A great presentation. I want to ask you a little bit more about the value for the providers are the ones that are going to be paying for this solution to get to those that needed, the patients. Can you expand a little bit more how you're going to get to those savings that you talk about, $10 per patient, this anticipation operational needs that you mentioned, and related to that, are there any other values that you can provide to providers, either by bringing clinical trials to their hospitals, or the ability to do research themselves on the data? Thank you.
Thank you for that question. What we sort of envisioned, the way that we came across the $10 figure, which is also validated by some of the existing research, is thinking about how connecting the existing fragmented systems of care can remove redundancies and also enable clinics and NGOs to properly allocate and assign resources to know what supplies are most needed and how can they stretch their donor dollars as far as possible. And then in terms of other opportunities, we're actually really excited about the opportunities that a data collection system in under-resourced settings can create, not just for health data collection, but for clinical trials or even for social services that are often being administered in these settings. So we really believe that the tool we've created here can scale across different opportunities and topics to really support the conditions on the ground there.
Great. Okay, on to Sarah Hodges. A bunch of questions, but yeah, Sarah first.
Great. Congrats on being here. So I'm curious, how are you thinking about building a scalable path to physician adoption?
We spent a lot of time on the ground reaching out to physicians and clinics who are currently providing care to understand the exact use case. So for example, being limited to just 5 minutes per patient and sort of the necessities around offline capability. So now that we've built a product that we really feel can work in the field, we're building out our partnerships by leveraging our internal networks through NGOs and clinics operating across the world, not just in the Middle Eastern context, but also here in the US, as well as with clinics and NGOs in Latin America or in Africa. But then ultimately, I think we sort of see an opportunity to work directly with big organizations like the WHO or the Gates Foundation. I'll let Zahra take it off from here.
Yeah, and I think just to add to that, we know that engaging those larger data customers is challenging, and so we are committed to getting it right. We have a 2-year plan in place for those data contracts with those large international organizations. Those players are often the funders of our own clinical partners. They have a lot of their own reporting gaps and have already expressed to us willingness to pay 7-figure contracts for optimal data collection systems, as well as predictive analytic tools that we want to build on top of the data, like pandemic forecasting, that become feasible once we get to a data set size beyond 100,000 patients. So we're working with our advisory board that has already worked with Gates, WHO in the past to create that evidence generation plan, create that monitoring and evaluation framework so that we can come to a WHO or a Gates in 2 years and say, hey, we have all of this data and we've made clinical and economic impact on your projects already.
Great. On to Jason Troutner, our next judge question.
Great work, everyone. I have a question. So with any software product, there's always the go-to-market question of start with a more all-encompassing feature-complete product, or start with a more specific acute need and try to be a 10x solution there. It seems you've kind of had the opportunity to do both, having a fully functional EHR and then in the recent months building a very specific module for COVID. I was wondering how you found your traction to compare between those two different strategies.
Yeah, so with the product, we are absolutely optimizing exactly what you just said, Jason. We're trying to optimize between rapid execution and iteration where needed, and nowhere has that been as evident as with the rise of COVID, and I'll let Zahra chat about that in a sec. But our dev cycles are approximately 3 months in duration, and we have, as Hassan mentioned, really done months of research immersively on site to understand what the core need is. And our feature list is not just us sitting back and saying, oh, wouldn't it be cool? This is the optimization of what the need is on the ground and what we can provide. And I think Zahra can speak to our work on COVID.
Yeah, just to give some more context for COVID, I think it's affecting a lot of startups in a lot of different ways. It's actually been a really mixed bag for us. I think it's really underscored the unmet need, exposed just how under-resourced some of these communities that we're working with are. We're talking population densities in some of these refugee camps that are 10 times that of New York City. We're talking about lack of running water, so you can't wash your hands. So if you're not able to monitor the spread of disease with a screening tool, you're really in a bad situation. In the case of our current partners on the ground in Lebanon, they're actually not even allowed into the camps until just a few weeks ago. And they were doing consultations over WhatsApp. And so our team jumped on this opportunity. Just over a few days, we used algorithms from MGH and Hopkins to design a screening tool in the platform that tracks symptoms, risk factors, and travel over time so that folks can rapidly screen for COVID. And we've received a lot of inbound interest to use that platform. And I think Going forward, we want to continue to build out the COVID tool so that we can perfect it and add more features while still maintaining the traction that we have on the overall Hikmah platform. And so once we get past the acute phase of COVID, that some of our partners continue to be able to use this as a long-term tracking tool.
Very, very good. I think we probably only have time for one last question. I think we've only heard so far once tonight from Ron Chaney. So if I can get him in the conversation.
Yes, I'm curious about interoperability of your platform. There are other data collection systems like this, or with slightly different data and so forth. How have you considered how you might augment those and leverage the sharing of data, and how do you plan to address that?
Thanks, Ron. This is absolutely critical for us, and that is the need that I saw on the ground in Jordan in 2017, 2018, and the reason we founded Hikmah Health. There are kids like Hisham, a 7-year-old boy who had been previously diagnosed in Syria, and then he moved to Jordan and nearly died from his diabetic crisis because they didn't know that he had been previously diagnosed. Now, if the EHR in Syria had written, hey, he has diabetes, and the EHR in Jordan had something else, if they weren't interoperable, as you're saying, that's not fulfilling our key purpose, which is to move the needle forward on the health of kids like Hisham. So what we've basically done with our product is we've built it to be fully compliant with all standards. FHIR is probably the best known one, and our tech stack is fully open source. So we prioritize the ability for all other EHRs to be able to, when appropriately permissioned, securely read the data from our EHR. And we're actually working to reach out to some of these other EHR folks and say, hey, it's in all of our mutual best interest and the interest of our physicians and our patients if they can all read and write data together. So we're really excited to see this new era dawning of interoperability, and we're excited to play a key role in that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Very, very, very good. Around the world, let's give one more round of applause here for Hikmah Health and the important work they're doing on really bringing those electronic health records and really kind of fixing that incredibly challenging system. Okay. For a moment, what I'm going to do is give our judges a chance once again to record their reflections. I know there were a bunch of other questions, but we're limited by those 7 minutes. And for a moment, I want to turn it back to our managing directors to hear a bit more about them and thank our wonderful organizing team. Take it away, Akhilesh.
Thank you, Scott. MIT 100K is an entirely student-run organization where students manage all aspects of the competition, including the event that we're having tonight. Before we move on to the second half of our event, we wanted to take a moment to recognize the incredible 100K organizing committee. Without this team, this launch competition, along with Pitch and Accelerate earlier this year, would not have been possible. Over the course of the 3 competitions, we work with hundreds of student-led startups, dozens of judges and mentors, our wonderful sponsors, all to create a stronger ecosystem of entrepreneurship at MIT. This work the team does to pull all of that together, whether it is for a packed house at Kresge Auditorium every year or a webcast with over 1,000 viewers tonight, is no small feat and takes an incredible amount of energy and dedication. It has truly been an honor and privilege to work alongside this team. So please join me in giving them a huge thank you and a big round of applause.
Okay, thanks so much. You know, one of the reasons of, that I so enjoy 100K and I'm so inspired by it is it is in fact a pure example of student leadership and advancing the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And so for me, let me again thank the entire organizing team for doing such a great job at this unique moment. I think the judges I'm looking at are now ready. And so we can now turn to our 5th finalist for the evening. In 2018, the MIT Sloan Latin American office collaborated with a great team at Instituto Tecnológico de Buenos Aires in Argentina to pioneer the first LATAM 100K competition. This year's winner from the competition has also worked with the Legatum Center for Development and Entrepreneurship here at MIT and is next to our stage. Let me welcome Jacqueline Cruz, CEO of Licora. Licora is disrupting the leather goods industry through microbiology. Over to you, Jacqueline.
Hello, I'm Jacqueline, the co-founder of Licora, and we are the 100K Latin American winners 2019. These are pictures from the principal river in our city, Arequipa, in Peru. At the left, it had it used to be when we were kids, you could almost see the fishes, and now it looks like the picture on the right, and this is mainly because of the pollution from the tanneries in our region. But this is not only a problem in Peru, this is a problem worldwide. The leather industry is the fourth most polluting industry. It kills nearly 4 billion animals. It uses 400 billion liters of water. For example, to make a pair of leather shoes, you need approximately 8,000 liters of water. And the workers from the tanneries have a higher risk of getting cancer. Licora is a new vegan, eco-friendly bio-leather. Our mission is to disrupt the leather industry. Licora doesn't come from animals because it's made by a microbial consortium. We don't use any toxic chemicals in our process, and we feed our microorganisms with residues from plants and fruits. Our bio-leather can be bioengineered. We can change the texture, thickness, and flexibility. It is biodegradable, and the residues from the process can be used as liquid compost. So it's a total zero waste and circular process. We can compete with animal and synthetic leather. Our quality is consistent, unlike animal leather that has an irregular shape that accounts for 20% in production cost loss. Also, our bio-leather is as strong as the strongest cow leather, and we can compare that with our tensile strength. We can resist up to 100 degrees Celsius and high pressures. Our bio-leather is produced in approximately 3 weeks, whereas animal leather may take up to 8 weeks. Our business model is to sell our bio-leather. In order to test the functionality and the scalability, we have made different accessories with the help of ateliers and artisans across Europe and Peru. And we had an amazing feedback on the performance of our bio-leather. It behaves as vegetable tan leather. This means that it can be sewn by hand, by machine. It can use the same products and tools as animal leather. We have particularly worked with an atelier in France that makes prototypes for high luxury, well-known brands worldwide. And also, we have done additional testing in a laboratory in San Francisco. The leather market represents $100 billion, and the vegan leather market is growing at an accelerated rate. This is a huge opportunity for us because we are seeing that customers are willing to pay higher prices for products that are from eco-conscious companies and brands. We are a strong team of women determined to change the fashion industry. We know how to responsibly manage funds because we have raised a significant amount of funds without giving any equity. We have the help of our amazing mentors and advisors, and we have won different awards worldwide, like the Global Change Award, that is known as the Nobel Prize of the fashion industry. This has given us a lot of visibility, and we have been featured in different magazines like Vogue. Highly luxury and commercial brands are highly interested in working with our bio-leather. These brands belong to the LVMH group and the Kering group, as well as commercial brands like H&M. We are now in the scaling phase. We are in the construction of our pilot production plant. We have already filed a patent, and we are working on an additional patent. With the help of the 100K, we will not only be able to sell our samples, but also increasing our capacity of our pilot production plant will mean that we will be able to make capsule collections with well-known brands worldwide. In Licora, we believe in having all of the luxury from animal leather without any of the guilt. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. A great presentation from Jacqueline, and welcome from Peru, and just really inspiring work. Now time for some question. If it's okay, we'll get started with first Jennifer Jordan. Thank you so much, Jennifer.
Felicidades a todos ahí. Congratulations. Very interesting to me that this is an application of synthetic biology to something eco-friendly. And could you talk about how you're going to navigate, and do you expect any pushback when consumers realize that this new biodegradable eco-friendly thing is also could be categorized as a GMO?
Thank you for the question. Right now, we are seeing problems with GMOs in the case of food, in the case of leather goods or other alternatives that have microorganisms that you don't eat. We haven't seen any problems. What we have seen is that people are not familiar with goods that comes from bacteria or microorganisms, but that is easily explainable when we say that yogurt, beer, vinegar comes from microorganisms, and they are all safe.
Very, very good. That's actually a very good way to think about it. Sarah Hodges, I think, was up next.
Hi, congratulations. I'm curious, what are the additional proof points that some of these luxury brands want to see from you before they're ready to engage in a pilot or additional work?
Thank you. Well, they actually want to engage right now. They want to start using our bio leather because we have showed them the testing, how it behaves, and that is stronger than most alternatives, and it can compete with animal leather. So right now we are building our pilot production plant. So that is mainly the issue why we are not selling, because we are in lab scale. We are building the machines for the pilot production plant in order to have a bigger capacity and send samples to our customers.
Great, 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 great. I think on over to Adam Belkin.
Yeah, so I'm aware of some other companies that have gone down this path, including Modern Meadow, and I'm just wondering what you've learned from others that have raised significant capital to go down this path, and how you are different and what you can do better, and what the implications of what's happened for them are for you.
Thank you. Well, yes, exactly. A proof that this is what the consumers are looking for is that these companies have raised a significant amount of money. The main difference is that, for example, the companies that are making bio leather that comes from microorganisms has to still use a tanning process. So it's not totally toxic free of chemicals. And the other companies that are doing other vegan leathers use a layer of plastic and a lot of water. In our case, we use less than 1% of the water that animal leather uses. We don't use any chemicals, plastic in our process. And one of the main things also is that we can compete with animal leather in strength, and there is not other alternatives that can compete. The strongest one of these alternatives, we have more than double the strength than them. So this is a really huge opportunity for us because we can make everything that you do with animal leather with our bio leather.
Very, very cool. On to Leandro Vecher.
Hi. So very familiar with this transition from a pilot to a manufacturing scale with bio-based products, and it's very, very challenging to move to that stage. So my question is, have you explored the possibility of an offtake agreement with some of these brands that you've been talking with? So some sort of commitment that they will buy your product once you can have the product ready at scale. That usually enables investors to commit to invest in this type of plans. So have you explored anything like that, or any other type of commitment from this type of companies that will help you with investors towards that manufacturing scale?
Okay, thank you. Well, we actually have letters of intention from some of these customers. And right now we have the funds from the pilot production plant, but we will only be able to sell samples right now. So with the help of the 100K, we will be able to increase our production in order to make capsule collections with them as well. So mainly the letters of intention will be that they are really interested in working with us. And another thing will be when we sell samples that they are able and want to buy the samples.
Very, very good. Up to on to Ron Chaney, if that's okay.
Yeah, I'm really interested in the process and any challenges you see in making that scale at production level.
No, right now we have done several testings. That is why we are already scaling into pilot production. The process is really simple and the cost is really low because our microorganisms reproduce themselves and we feed them with residues of plants and fruits. So that is why our costs are low. And we have done different testings in order to see if it's scalable, and we already know and are certain that it's scalable.
Okay. Very, very good. I think back first to Jennifer Jordan, if that's okay. We'll see. Yeah.
Yeah, my quick question is also about that scaling. Are you building your own production plant, or are you partnered with a sort of toll manufacturer who takes your kit and recipe and can produce to spec what it is you need? And is there a possibility of doing that to reduce that cost as you scale?
Thank you. Our process is really specific. So right now we are working with a university and they are mechanical engineers. So they are building the machines with our specifications. So for now in the pilot production, we are working with them. Of course, in the industrial production, we can partner with different other entities in order to enter the massive market.
Great. Okay. I think Jason Troutner also had his hand up. Is it a quick question? Because we have about 30 seconds.
Yeah, quick question. So you have a patent pending on your method of making this this material. If another company were to come in with a different method of creating a vegan bioleather, what other aspects of your business could help you defend against those entrants?
Well, our microorganisms are native, so you can't buy them. We have actually 19 different microorganisms in our microbial consortium, so it's really unique. So in just along with that, you couldn't replicate it. So also with the patent, we have patented our process. So right now we are working into patent decomposition. So that will help us to be more covered.
Very good. Thank you, Team Licora. Thank you, Jacqueline. That was just a really great Q&A. Really got really down into there, beyond just, customer, but onto scale up, onto financing, the whole thing.